Hello and welcome once again to Intro to Computer Games and Simulations here at Lorain County Community College. I am Mike Substelny, your instructor for this term, and today we are going to be talking about playtesting. We are in the 8th module of our 16-module adventure together, and that means that it's about time we took a midterm halfway through, so expect the midterm to be available in the next week or so. It may vary if you're one of the high school students watching this broadcast, but for my students, you should expect the midterm to be available in the next week or so. And next week will be possibly the most exciting week of the entire term. It is the week we do playtesting. I strongly encourage every one of my students who is able to come to campus to actually be here physically on campus for the physical prototyping exercise. Physical prototyping is where we get out the toys and we prototype some games. It is the most fun you will ever have in a college class. But let's get into this week's material. Previously, we said that a game designer must be an advocate for the player. That was in the very first week, one of the first things we said. Now, a good way to learn the skills of being an advocate for the player is to become a playtester. And today, playtesting is what we are going to discuss. What is this thing we call playtesting? Well, playtesting is not the same thing as game designing. You really can't playtest something until it's already been designed. And now, you can playtest a prototype that has been designed, even a physical prototype that we'll talk about next week, but it has to have been developed, and you need to be able to play it before you can playtest it. Playtesting also is not necessarily the same as debugging. You can playtest a game that still has some bugs in it, and you can debug a game without playtesting it. Both of those are possible. Playtesting is also not the same thing as beta testing. This is important. A game should have been play-tested long before it reaches the beta phase. We're about to find out why. Beta testers should be testing a game that is already fun. Play-testers might be play-testing a game that has not yet been made fun. We'll see. All right, playtesting is playing a game. And playtesting could be enjoying that game, but playtesting might also be hating that game. The reason is, playtesting is the best process we have for finding out what is fun and what is not fun about a game. That's a quote from me, and expect that on your quizzes and tests. So why should you do this thing called playtesting? The game designer can tell if the game is fun, right? Well, fun is an opinion, and it requires human judgment. The game designer, herself or himself, is just one human. And let's talk about why we should use playtesters. When we look at the universe of playtesters and of game players, we see they are not necessarily the same universe. If this is all game players that exist, there will be this population of game players that don't have a whole lot of game playing experience. Then you will look into the population, you will find more and more, this is the number of players and this is the amount of experience, you'll find lots and lots of players have a medium amount of experience. And then when you get to the extreme players, the ones that have huge amounts of playing experience, they will be over here, and there won't be as many of those, and there never will. There will always be the most players here with a medium amount of experience. You mostly want to make sure that these people can enjoy your game. Well, if you are a game designer, game developers are probably here. Most likely, if you take this class, you have more than the ordinary amount of game playing experience. Most likely, if you are going to be a game developer, you are in a completely different population. And it takes something different to amuse you than it takes to amuse them. So you want your fun measured by them, this population here. If the only people who test your game, who play test your game, are in this population, it's going to be fun for them, maybe not for everybody else in the universe. Let's talk about self-testing. You actually will self-test your own games. You will play games that you design. There's probably no avoiding that, and that's perfectly fine. You probably do that in this class, I hope, although a few of you have turned in games where I do wonder if you've ever actually played them or not because of some of the things that happen. Most of you, I am confident, are playing your games and enjoying your games and are certain there's some fun there before you turn them in. You will, however, as you become a professional in the industry, find the opinions of others to be quite valuable. Let's look at the downside of self-testing. It's frequent that we cannot see our own faults in our games. And your idea of what is fun, what is wonderful, what is super cool might not be shared by the population of game players at large. So let's talk about testing with your friends. There are advantages to having your friends test your game. You can get them to test early versions of the game pretty easily. They're willing to sit through things for you because they like you. The downside is you cannot always rely on their objectivity. They may say nicer things than other players would. They may make you believe that your game is flawless when actually it could use some improvement. Or they may be ultra-critical just because that's how they are. Eventually, you're going to have to play test any game that's going to make it in prime time with strangers. Whom should you get when you request these strangers? There are lots of strangers out there in the world. Well, a good way to do it is to find playtesters at community organizations. You know what? A community college campus works well, and I know where you can find one of those. High schools can also work as places to find playtesters. Now, who do you accept as a playtester? That's a big, big difference. You do not need, it turns out, the very, very best game players. Though skill can be nice. You do need playtesters who can articulate well. You need them to be able to explain what is happening in their minds as they play. You see, playtesters don't just experience your game. They must tell you about that experience. You can't read their minds. So, whom do you accept? Well, a playtester who cannot hold a coherent telephone conversation is probably useless to you, even if he or she has mad skills. Now, diversity is good. You should try for a cross-section of the target audience that you intend for your game. Well, let's talk about a playtesting session. When you conduct the playtesting session, you should get in front of your playtesters and introduce the game. You should let the playtesters know you're going to watch them play the game. You should have a warm-up discussion. You should ask them questions like, what is your favorite game? What do you like about your favorite games? And then you fire up the game and you watch them play. It's a good idea, your book recommends, to do 15 to 20 minutes to start off the initial session. And while they're playing, you can ask the playtesters to think out loud, to say what they're feeling. And some of them may be quite good at that. If you've got access to a one-way mirror where you can look at them but they can't see you, that can help. So we are looking right now at a set of players playing a game, and we might observe what they're up to and make some conclusions about the experience they're having playing the game, and then we might ask them questions afterwards about their experience. We will then discuss their experience, which would probably be another 15 or 20 minutes. And first, you could ask for voluntary feedback from the players. then you should ask some probing questions. And we've got some suggestions for questions that you might prepare, like, what were your overall thoughts? Could you learn the game quickly? What did you like about the game? What did you dislike about the game? What was confusing to you about the game? Questions like that can get them started talking, discussing, thinking about the game. Playtesters sometimes might be reluctant to speak, but they may still have valuable information in their heads. And the game designer must be prepared to discover the truth from them. Playtesters might be trying to protect your feelings. You need to have strong feelings. You must have a thick skin. Don't worry about your feelings. Criticism from your players can be harsh. And artists in all media, including game design and music and writing and arts and novels and films, must be accustomed to criticism. It's going to happen. You've got to listen to your playtesters. Do not lead them, if possible. That can taint their feedback. Take the feedback as naturally as you can, and yet you must prompt them to keep giving feedback. So someone must lead the discussion, no matter what. And I am going to give you some tools to help your playtesting discussion. Here's a useful discussion tool, the play matrix as given in your book, which plots every game as a combination of skill, luck, and mental ability and physical ability. Let's go to looking at the screen again. On the play matrix, what kind of games would fit where? Let's say basketball is a very high skill game and a very high physical game. It's not quite as high on the mental or the luck. You have to have great physical skills and not necessarily luck. Everything that ball does as it's moving is deterministic, as we learned a couple of weeks ago. Now, a game of cards, let's say poker or bridge. Well, let's say bridge. There may be a luck component to it, but in bridge, it's a mental game, very high on skill. You don't need physical muscles or physical endurance to play bridge. You need your mind to play a good game of bridge. And even luck. Luck is important in poker, but if you have good skills, you can be successful at bridge regardless of how the cards are dealt. A game of craps, on the other hand, most die-rolling games, very, very high luck component in such games. Almost no physical skill involved. There is mental skill involved. You have important decisions to make in a game of craps, but you don't have a lot of physical skills involved. You need luck to win. There aren't a lot of examples of games that are high physical and high luck. Your book suggests Whack-A-Mole, and I agree, as a game that's very high in the physical skill and very high in the luck component. Your game, Evil Clutches, is a little bit in the physical and luck, but it's closer to the center of the play matrix. It's got some mental, it's got some skill, it's got some physical, and it's got some luck involved in it. Those demons come out based on a random number generator. That's luck. The babies come out based on a random number generator. That's luck. But you do still have skill involved in your moves. Galactic Mail, I'd say, is probably the closest to the center of requiring physical, mental, skill, and luck of the games we've done so far in this class. Koala-Brate is a game that I would chart probably higher on mental than physical because there are some reflexes involved there. Some of those obstacles, like the saws, are moving and you need some physical skill. But beyond that, it's a mental puzzle-solving game, so it's more mental than it is physical. And there's no random number generators involved in koala braid. So it's much more skill than it is luck. Where do you think baseball would fit? Is it high in the mental, high in the physical, high in the skill, or high in the luck? I would say baseball, there might be a little bit more luck involved in baseball, but it's very high in skill, very high in physical, probably higher in mental than basketball is, because there is so much strategy that is deeply embedded in the game of baseball. And you may argue with me on the forums if you like. How about Tetris? Where would you qualify Tetris if this were given as a test question? I would say Tetris lives in the mental quadrant above the physical quadrant. There is some physical skill involved, but it is much more mental than physical. There is some luck involved, but there is more skill than luck involved in the game, I would say, because there is a random number generator that is throwing out those blocks to you. So it is possible, no matter how good your skill is, that you might not be able to last forever playing Tetris. Now, when you're gathering data from your playtesters, a Likert scale can be extremely useful. What the heck is this thing we call a Likert scale? Well, here's an example. I found this game to be excellent, good, average, fair, poor. There we have a Likert scale. Here are some other examples of Likert scales. Rate this game on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being terrible and 10 being awesome. Your playtesters rate the game, and you can tabulate those numbers. Or a question like, this game left me totally satisfied, mostly satisfied, somewhat satisfied, a little satisfied, or not at all satisfied. Another great example of a Likert scale question. Now, if you use numeric Likert scales, they allow you to calculate averages. That question we asked before, rating the game between terrible and awesome. Well, look at this. I've got feedback from 5 of my playtesters here, and I can calculate an average of those 5. So I've got somebody said 8, somebody said 9, somebody said 8, somebody said 5, somebody said 7. Out of my 5 playtesters, the average is 7.4. So I can use those averages for comparison. Suppose I'm developing my game, and in March playtest, I get a 7.4. I go back, I take their feedback, I redesign the game, make some changes, I do another playtesting in May. My May playtesters give me ratings like this, and I get that 20 should be a 10. I get a score of 8.2. My game got better, and I can tell that numerically based on these averages. That's it for this week. Next time is going to be very exciting. We're going to get out the toy box, and we are going to design some physical prototypes of games. I hope you can make it for that. If you're playing at home, get out your own toy boxes and design your own prototypes of games. Until next week, this is Mike Substelny signing off for Intro to Computer Games and Simulations here at Lorain County Community College.